We spoke about Abraham, Avram Avinu, being a conduit for the divine kindness, the embodiment of divine kindness. And yet, he looked at himself as being Afar ve'efar, dust and ashes. He didn't see himself as an individual who is extraordinary. Not that he fooled himself and thought that he wasn't, but that's not what he felt about himself. All he felt about himself, he's a conduit for the divine kindness. So he's just expressing through him that which is bestowed upon him from on high. That's a real way to live, as that you just see yourself as a conduit for the divine purpose that you were created for. So that when you do good, you don't go, oh, I'm so good. Look what I've accomplished. What do you mean? That's all you were created for, is for that good, to be a conduit. So true humility, true authenticity would be to just direct it to the source of where it comes from God, the Creator, who endowed you with this, who gave it to you for the sole purpose that you should use it, reflect it, and be it. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zrich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We continue in the 15th letter, B'Geras HaKodesh. Excuse me. And in this letter, we are going to understand ourselves. And by understanding ourselves, the way our soul interplays within our body, we will have an awareness of how God interplays with creation. And of course, this all begins with the 10 spheres from above, 10 divine attributes of God that he has imbued us with 10 powers of the soul. Today we explain the emotive attributes of the soul, which are 7 general categories. 7 attributes, 7 emotive attributes on high that are vested within our soul, 7 emotional attributes. So the first one is chesed, loving kindness. Loving kindness, the concept of it is embracing without boundaries, with no limits, another, motivated by love, that you embrace indiscriminately, giving. And therefore, it's embodied in the right hand, the strong hand, because in that strong manner, you are indiscriminate in your giving. It is the first and the primary emotion of loving kindness. An example of that would be when you're a host, you embrace all your guests in a loving way, indiscriminately. You don't make one guest feel really comfortable and another guest not so comfortable, because that's not a proper host. You don't feed one guest, a little more, and then the other guest, I'm sorry, you need to diet. not so much for you. That's not a host. If you're, if you're the person's dietitian and they're coming to you as a dietitian, that's a different story. When I talk about you're a host, you're hosting people in your home. You are indiscriminate in your loving kindness. By way of example. Then there is the attribute of gvura, stern limitation and contraction that seeks to restrain and hold back. It's the left hand, which is the weaker hand, because we need to be more, not so strong about that. We have to be, we have to create boundaries, but we have to be careful of the boundaries that we create, the restraint that we hold off from giving. And a metaphor for this, or an example, not a metaphor, but an example of this, and these are examples I'm giving, it's not here in the Tanya, as a mother before, or a father, before dinner, child wants to have an ice cream, and say, no, you restrain from giving the ice cream because you don't want to spoil their appetite. Whereas the host is indiscriminate in the giving, the parent is very discriminating. Ice cream is not before dinner, right? Then we have rachamim, compassion, pity, which in the makeup of the person, it's the torso. That's the right. The torso, right? Compassion to that which is appropriate to be compassionate towards. It's not always proper to have compassion. To have compassion over a murderer is not good. Oh, let him go. Yeah, he was raised really in a, broken home. He was raised in a bad, environment. Don't blame him for this. Blame the rest of society. No, that's an inappropriate compassion. Because, of course, that might lead to other innocent lives being lost. Just giving an example. Or to the drug addict, to give them money, that would be an appropriate compassion. But compassion, it's called tiferes, beauty. Beautiful, something beautiful is a very balanced mixture between colors when it comes to a painting, right? A balance of colors that blend together beautifully. So here is a blend between chesed and gvura when it comes to compassion. Where kindness is no boundary, compassion, there's a boundary. Why are you giving? Not because indiscriminate giving, because you're actually being discriminating. Oh, poor guy. Down and out. So you're aware of the person's situation. Indiscriminate giving is you're not looking at the situation. You're a host, and you just, the hostess with the mostest, right? Indiscriminate giving. But here there's a discrimination made, a judgment made. And that is, this person is fitting to have pity on. They're really suffering and down and out. Well, that's a judgment. That's, recognizing the other, right? Which is an aspect of the left side, Vora. But at the same time, you're not refraining. You're actually giving. So it's a mixture of the two. And therefore, it is beautiful. And that's a concept of compassion, having pity. And therefore, analogous, again, to several colors coming together on a beautiful piece of clothing that just, blend beautifully together, fuse together, right? Now, those three emotions are really more about, it's to the right hand, left hand, right? When you talk and you're animated in your talking, you use your hands, right? Why do you use your hands? Because it expresses you. It's expressing you. It's not about the other person. It's towards the other person, right? But it's not so much about the other person. It's more about your feelings to that person. So that feeling to that person of embracing them with, indiscriminate love, or right, that's about you. Or the refrain. I mean, there's an aspect of that person there, of course, but it's more about the feeling within inside of you. So, for example, if you're passionate about something, let's say you're passionate about your child learning something, learning a discipline so they could get a livelihood. That's really important to you. So, and you're the teacher to that child of it, let's say, by way of example. So when if it would be the loving kindness, the gvura, or even the compassion, you wouldn't yet take into consideration sufficiently the child, your child, who you want to give over to them something of value and importance. The first three emotions are more the way they're within you more than it is on how you're going to deliver the teachings, the material, the lesson plan to the child. The next three components of emotions are about that. How to be deliberate that the recipient, your child here, right? Again, by way of example, should receive the passion that you have about this, your whatever work you do, and you want to teach it to your child and you want them to have it, you're passionate about it. Now you need to be deliberate about it in order that it should be absorbed, the teachings, the lesson, right? Whatever it is that you want to convey to your child. That's the next level. And that takes two legs, right leg and left leg. Netzach and Hoid. What are the right and left leg? They're about grounding. They're about bringing it down to the ground, bringing it outside of you, so to speak. Right? Your hands are more about you and how you feel about it, right? That you get very excited. It's you and your excitement that you're getting excited and passionate when you're using your hands, right? But that's more about you. To bring it to the other, that it should be now a teachings, a lesson, that it should be for them and absorbed by them. You need the grounding of the two legs, Netzach and Hoy, to begin with. So for example, when you're really excited about something and you really want to give it over because you're excited about it. Again, that's you. What happens when you do that? And you don't now filter it through the next two emotions, Netzach and Hoid. Netzach, we try enduring, triumph. Hoid is acknowledgement, and we'll leave it at acknowledgement right now. What happens when you don't filter it? You end up giving too much. Because in your head, you're excited about it and you know it, and you just start, right? And you're overwhelmed. You know why? Because you didn't bring it you didn't ground it with your two legs. You didn't bring it down, right? You didn't bring it down. So in order to filter it, you need to, bring it to Netzachayid, to ground it, to bring it down into right. Now in this grounding, so the metaphor the Alter Rebbe gives as sperm is physical, but the root of it is the brain, is ethereal. The metaphor over here is that sperm is very physical. It develops into something very physical, but is something that it begins in the brain that is ethereal. So the same thing is when you're bringing a teachings, and I hope I'm grounding it for you, meaning this is very abstract, ethereal idea, but you need to ground it and bring it down and make it concrete for an individual, for the student who you're teaching. Right? So that is Netzach and Hoy, the two right legs that do that, to bring it down, to bring it from the subtlety that there is of an idea, to bring it in a way that it's absorbed in the mind of the student, your child, your student, whatever it is, in order that they can absorb it and get it. Right? And therefore, through the kidneys, that everything flows through, right? And the two testicles is just a metaphor over here. You can that concretizes, right, something that is abstract, and the kidneys filter. Oh, the same thing is the excitement that you have with your hands, that your chesed and gvura have, right? Needs to be filtered now. It needs to be brought down. That's the grounding of the two legs, right? It's also metaphorically, again, we say the kidneys because that filters. And now you take out what you should take out from there. That's the idea of also two testicles that create sperm, meaning from an ethereal, abstract thought in the mind, it comes, right? Okay, that's one part of Netzach and Hoid. Another part of Netzach and Hoid is grinding. Grind, a little child, you want to feed them. If you give them a piece of bread that's, you give them a loaf of bread. What you got there? Nothing. It's too much. You can't deal with it. Right? You need to cut it into pieces. So the first idea was take from the abstract and concretize it. The second idea of grounding, right, of the right and left leg, is that you are dividing it into pieces. You have to be very deliberate, very discerning here on giving bite-sized pieces to your child, to your student, so that they could absorb it, right? So those are both Netzach and Hoy, the grounding, right? Now, Netzach in particular, the right leg, Netzach means victory. It means triumphant. It means enduring, right? Who's victorious? Those who endure, right? They prevail. So this means that you will have your child or your student or just a friend that you're teaching something that's really important to you and you really want them to have it. So you need to be triumphant and endure what? The challenges from within and from without. The child's talking, not focused. And that could set you off. You need to overcome that. Or you, in your mind, you feel that this child is not ready for it. And maybe it's just, if they're not really ready for that, then of course, and you got to rethink on how, to deliver the message. But sometimes it's not because they're not ready for it. It's just, maybe I'm tired today and I just don't have the strength, and so I have to overcome me. And just, my thoughts are elsewhere because I'm going through something, right? So I got to overcome. I have to be triumphant over me so I could deliver what I need to deliver to this person, right? That's Netzach. Okay. Get rid of your inner noise, right? So you can focus on the person in front of you so you could deliver and give them what they need. That's Netzach. In this letter, Hoid, it's missing. It's missing in this letter what Hoid is. As I mentioned, so I'm just going to fill in just a bit over here. Hoid means acknowledgement. And here it means, whereas Netzach is the right side, right, the right leg. So it's about the giving, because right hand is giving. So the right leg is also more powerful. It's about giving. So it's about being triumphant over the things so I will give, right? In other words, the child's talking or not focused, so I gotta, that noise, and then the inner noise I have to overcome to be triumphant so I can enduringly give. The left side is, so the right is more about me and what I've got to focus on. The left side is more about an awareness of the other. So, Hoid, acknowledging the other, really being attuned to where they're at, and to speak in the language or in the manner that they will be able to receive it from where they're at. That's what Hoid would be, that acknowledgement. Right? And so both are grounding, different kinds. And then the final idea for today is Yesoid. Yesoid, it means foundation. In the physical being, it's a reproductive organ. That's foundational. Well, your right hand is chesed, left hand is gvura, torso is tiferes, compassion, right leg is netzach, enduring, triumphant, left leg is acknowledgement. So there's only one thing left, and that is the reproductive organ. That is Yesoid, foundation. Another term we use for Yesoid is connection. And yeah, now our bond, right? Yesoid, right? That's what the reproductive organ is. It creates a bond. So the reproductive organ, right? When do you create greater sperm? When there's a greater sense of connection. If there's not a sense of connection, then you don't create sperm, right? Mm-hmm. But when there is, right? So what's that? That's a metaphor of the desire of the person to connect with who they're teaching. Means like this, not of just a teacher, but also the student. Perfect example. I'm teaching right now, And I've got the two experiences right now. One is I've got people here in the room, and when you see their eyes, when you look at them, right, and you connect with them, and they connect with you, and you see how they are engaged, what does that create? A deeper connection and and deeper desire to bond. And therefore, when you give over the material, you give it over differently and much better, right? Much better, right? At the same time, I'm also teaching people online here. I don't see them. They see me, but from the metaphor part, I don't see them, which means there isn't a real connection. Right. Okay, I see some names here, and because I know who you are, and I might even know what you look like, some of you, because sometimes you come on Zoom and actually put on your camera. So I know what you look like, right? But in this moment, I don't see you, so it doesn't create a bond. And therefore, the desire in teaching is not as strong as when you feel bonded with the individual. Or it could be someone's right behind me and listening. The same words, but the bond isn't created. Therefore, the teaching is not the same. It's not the same. That's Yesod. Powerful. Very powerful idea. And it's interesting. It's the last of the six. Malchus will be that he doesn't bring over here in Malchus, because Malchus will be the thought, speech, and action, will be the garment of self-expression. It will be, but Yesod is the last one, but it's foundation, which in a sense is the first one. Because when you start in your teaching or giving over something to someone, if it's starting off with a bond, right, then that teaching will be very differently when there is not a sense of a bond, right? That's why those who are able, who have the strength and the fortitude to be able to look at another, at their eyes, and not look away, they always learn more. They always gain more. And the teacher gains more, right? Because it inspires them more. Because it creates a stronger bond. From there, then you can go and use the legs to be able to now discern, being very deliberate. What are you giving? Is it too abstract? Are you giving bite-sized pieces? Are you overcoming your challenges from within and from without? Are you truly aware of where they're holding and what they're able to receive from what you're going to give them? And then, the passion that comes with it, being, and so on and so forth. That is very powerful. Incidentally, this is the only place in Tanya where you have Yesod, Netzach, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, those three attributes of our soul, explained at length in Tanya. Yeah, Jeff, good point. This lesson reminds me to teach and connect rather than preach, right? So, actually, Jeff, good point. Thank you. When you preach, is that you preach when it's all coming from Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, because those are your feelings about what you are teaching. and you are not grounding it with the right and left leg of Netzach and Hod, and not connecting with Yesod to the other individual, because it's more about you and what you are passionate and feel strongly about, right? That's what the first three attributes are. And there, what will end up happening, because it's coming from there, and you're not being deliberating and how it's going to be received, so you end up being more of a preacher from there, right? When does it become connective? Is when you bring it down to Netzach and Hod and Yesod, then it becomes connective because you are really thinking about the other person on how it will be absorbed by them. How they're going to take, how they're going to, when I say absorb it, I mean, not like, oh, are they going to agree with me, not agree with me? That's not the point. Point is, are you bringing it in a way that they can, that makes some sense to them, that they can absorb it, that they can live with the idea, right? That it's meaningful to them. That's what, and that takes a much greater effort to be able to do that. That's so simple. Any questions, any comments? Clear, guys? Oh, yeah, very good. All right, folks, Rambam is coming up. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. A reminder, TRC today, 4 p.m. to join us.